Hello everyone and welcome to our Oxford MBA webinar today, focusing on our LGBTQ+ community at the school and university. If I can just double check you can hear us all, if you can pop a yes in the chat box, that would be fantastic, so I know we're not just talking to ourselves today. Great, I can see some yeses coming through, so thank you so much for that. So I hope you're all keeping well. My name is Corinne Young. I am one of the managers within the recruitment and admissions team at the Business School for the Oxford MBA. And joining me today, I have my colleague Francisca, who is on the line, who will be co-hosting this webinar. And then during today's webinar, we will have an alumni joining us, alumnus David Baker from New York. So welcome, David. And we will also have some current students joining us. As well as that, we have Jordan from Reaching Out MBA, and they will all shortly introduce themselves to you. So what you can expect over the next hour with us is an insight into our LGBTQ+ community at the Business School and University, highlighting some of the activities over the past year specifically and before then. We will also introduce you to our new partnership and scholarship with Reaching Out MBA, which we're very, very excited about. But before we get the panelists to introduce themselves to you, we have a poll, so we would like to hear from you. So hopefully in a moment you'll see this on your screen. And if you could just put where you are in your MBA journey, if this is applicable to you, it would give us a really good sense of who we've got on the line today. So I'll just give you a minute to start populating that, and some are coming through. Hopefully you can see these as well. So we'll give it another minute or so, and then I can end the polling. Great, so we're getting a good mix of people here. Just give it another few seconds there. Great, so I'll just end this as we currently have it. So hopefully you can see some of the results here. I'm just sharing these with you. So we've got some, most people are ready to apply, so that's great to see, and I'll be sharing some deadlines with you shortly about the new recruitment cycle as that opens on the 1st of August. Some people are in the early stages, beginning to consider an MBA and intending to apply in the next few years. We've got a few admits joining us, so welcome, and we're looking forward to meeting you in September if we haven't yet already. And also people that are just interested in the community here. So welcome to every one of you today, and I hope you find this a useful session. So I'd like to ask our panelists to briefly introduce themselves to you so you know who you'll be hearing from today. So Francie, if you could pop the next slide on, thank you. And if we go in order as you can see on the screen, that would be great. So Daiki, you're up first. So we're just trying to
Okay, can you hear me?
Perfect, yes we can.
Okay, cool. Hi everybody, I'm Daiki, and I am originally from Japan, and prior to coming to Oxford, I was in consumer insight, so I was doing like surveys, focus groups, ethnography studies, all kinds of marketing research projects. And what do I want to do after MBA? I would like to stay in the field of marketing / consumer insight, and I'm currently doing an internship with a digital marketing company.
Fantastic, thank you and welcome. And Kaya, would you like to go next?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, yes we can.
So my name is Kaya. I am originally from South Africa. Was most recently at McKinsey as a management consultant in Toronto, Canada. My next steps after the MBA are unclear right now, but I'm pursuing technology for social impact, no matter what that might look like.
Thank you, Kai, and welcome. And Lorena, would you like to go next?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lorena. I am originally from Peru, where I started my career in climate change consulting. And then I moved to work into a social startup in Uganda, working in operations in water access. And now I'm doing my MBA. Kaya, Daiki, and I are actually all of us in Oxford, which is nice. And after the MBA, same as Kaya, still up in the air, but ideally in the same sector of social impact.
Fantastic, thank you, Lorena. And David, would you like to speak next?
Hi, yes, I'm David Baker. I am from the matriculating class of 2015 of Oxford, originally from DC before going to Oxford, working in the political space and digital space, and used the MBA to help pivot into brand marketing, into generalist marketing as well. I'm now at L'Oreal in New York City, and where I work and lead on one of our hair color brands. And really excited to be a part and to give back to this amazing community.
Thank you, David, for joining us today. And Jordan, would you like to go next, please?
Hi everyone, my name is Jordan Summers. I'm the program manager for Reaching Out MBA. If you're not familiar with our organization, I will be telling you all about us in in just a little bit. I've been with the organization for about 4 years and I'm coming from Boston, Massachusetts today. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Jordan. It's a pleasure to have you join us today. So the next part, I'd like to briefly go into some of the admissions requirements for the Oxford MBA. I won't focus too much on this today because we're focusing mainly on our community and speaking to the students, alum, and Jordan, who we've got with us. So I will give you a few insights, but if you do have questions as we go, please do pop them into the Q&A box. We will have time at the end to ask everyone on our panel your questions, so please do keep those coming in throughout the webinar today. But I'd like to dive straight in by looking at some of the application requirements for the Oxford MBA. And I'll also focus on some of the deadlines that are coming up shortly too. So on this slide, you'll see what are the mandatory admission requirements that we have for the Oxford MBA. So within this, we do require an undergraduate degree. We require at least 2 years professional experience. Our average is 5 years, so we do have quite a wide bandwidth of that. We also require a GMAT or GRE score. This isn't preferential in terms of which that we consider, however, so you can submit either of those, whichever you prefer to complete yourself. In terms of your references, so we do have a lot of questions whether an academic and a professional reference should be submitted for each application. So this is completely up to you. We do not require an academic and a professional reference. What we do advise you is that you put forward 2 referees who know you well, people that know your strengths and know how you apply yourself today. So people that can speak about your leadership experience, your teamwork capabilities, etc. So do pick those that will be able to talk about your strengths. The video assessment I will touch on in the next slide in a moment, so I'll come back to that. The supporting statement is an area where you can discuss something with us that's not elsewhere reflected in your application. So this is an option for you to make yourself stand out slightly. You can be open and honest here about who you are, talk about perhaps a personal experience that you've had who has helped shape you today. You may wish to focus on talking about any lower academic scores that you have and the reasons behind that as well. So we do see a number of different reasons coming through and different statements. So this is really there for you to help sell yourself to the committee and stand out from the crowd. And then the English test. So this is if English isn't your native language, or you haven't attended a university level degree taught solely in English, then we will require either the TOEFL or the IELTS to be completed. But if you do have questions around this, then please do reach out to the team and we can share some more details with you later on about the email address to contact. In regards to the online assessment, I'll show you some more details on the next slide here. So this is a fairly new addition to our admissions process. So this is where you will have the ability to talk to camera and answer some questions that we pose to you. So the questions that we pose are timed. So it's really to see how you think on your feet and how you react to that. But also we will have around 4 video questions asking you about your motivations and posing some situations to you. So really looking for how you have dealt with similar situations in your professional life so far. We also have a practice area within this, so please do use that just to test your internet connection, to become familiar with the format of this, and also to help with the confidence before you go live. So you will have also 1 written assessment. So there are 5 questions for a video, 1 is written. So it's really looking how you convey your opinion and your argument to a question. So it's quite a nice addition for us to have this, because it does bring to life your application a bit more as we're reviewing applications. And also this gives you the opportunity to really draw on those experiences that you've had so far and provide some more richness to your application. Great. And on the next slide, we will discuss with you just some of our deadlines. So our application process for the 2021 September cohort will open on the 1st of August. So only a couple of weeks away now if you're looking to apply for that cohort. You'll see we have 4 stages throughout the year. So once you are ready to apply, please do start your application. You can dip in and out of it as much as you like. So you don't have to have everything ready to go once you start your application. You can add to it over time. We will require you to have everything complete by the deadlines you see in front of you. That also includes the online assessment, which you will get once you've submitted everything else. So do bear in mind that you'll get access to the online assessment after that period. So you will require all of these components to be complete by those dates. Great, Francie, if you can go to the next slide, please. Fantastic. So I'd like to hand you over now to our current students who are going to share some more details with you around the activities and the LGBTQ+ community at the school. So thank you so much for joining and hosting this part of the webinar.
Great. And I'd just like to say firstly, thank you so much to Corinne, who's done a lot of the heavy lifting for this event to actually happen. I think it's the first time that it's happening for the school. So thank you so much, Corinne, for being an ally. So the LGBTQ+ Saïd adventure began with us sort of trying to figure out who was part of the community and who wasn't. We didn't quite have the luxury of a Telegram group, which I think the current class has. So it was a bit of a runaround to sort of find people who thought other people were LGBTQ+. So that was fun. But as it were, we eventually found each other and we gathered for a dinner. I think there was 8 of us at our initial dinner. And yeah, everything started from there. We sort of discussed, what we wanted to achieve for the year, who we wanted to be, and what kind of fun events we could host. Daiki and Lorena, please chime in as and when. So the first, as I've mentioned, was the initial dinner, which was fun, and we sort of continued that tradition into other terms and eventually onto Zoom. The second was the pink party, which was the answer to the LBS white party, which was a fun event. Also happened to be on my birthday. Doesn't have to be on anybody's birthday for future cohorts, but that was a super fun night for many of us who were able to attend. Daiki, that is shade. And yeah, we've had some fun nights out at some undergraduate parties, but where we did feel quite a bit old. So how it works is the school has its own affinity group, but there are other affinity groups in the wider Oxford ecosystem. And we would attend those, as well as have some fun nights out, let's call them that. And eventually, again, as I mentioned, some Zoom socials. The community and social element did not just stop with the immediate community. We invited allies, which we actively tried to grow. And what we did was we formed a different Telegram group altogether for people who considered themselves allies, or people that didn't want to be, I guess, outwardly out with their sexuality, and they were able to participate in the events which we hosted. Don't know, Lorena and Becky, if you want to add anything.
What I would add is that, well, Kaya, you've done an amazing job at leading us, being our gay leader this year. I would say, like, we really, at least on my side, like, we really tried to participate in the wider university events. But given the pace of the MBA, I found it a little difficult. And I think the few events we went, you have like a general undergrad Tuesday drinks that then you go to Plush, which I don't know how that will look like next year. But also there were grad drinks. So basically everyone who is doing a graduate degree, which I thought it was quite interesting because you are more with people your own age, which when you're with the undergrads, you kind of notice the difference, I think.
Perfect. Next slide, please. Then I think something that was quite important to us as an affinity group was thinking about some of the thought leadership and education initiatives which we could host to not just be a community that exists, but a community that is visible and has critical conversations. The first of these was the Colors of Love event, which was on Valentine's Day, where we highlighted the LGBTQ plus experience in different parts of the world. Obviously, it's very different in Uganda versus the USA versus South Africa versus Peru. And we're able to hear those insights from members of the LGBT community, but also from allies who are aware of these issues. And then we came up with Taking Up Space series, which was about how people could have visibility in many different settings in life, conversations which aren't part of the curriculum in school. The first of these was the intersexuality conversation, where we addressed gender, race, and sexuality, where one of our panelists was a current student and another was an academic at the school. Which was a great event. It started highlighting some of the contemporary conversations we're having right now about Black Lives Matter, and that happened all the way in February. The second was around dismantling gender binaries and normalizing LGBTQ plus identities in every sense of the word, where we had Sam Brinton from the Trevor Project, Vice President of Governance, I think, and he spoke to us about his experience with conversion therapy, as well as how we could start thinking about gender very differently, and what the obligation of allies was to the transgender community, to non-binary people, to the intersex community, and helping to support them, which is something which are elements in the LGBTQ community which are very underrepresented, specifically in things like MBA programs. Then the third was a conversation we had not so long ago, actually, about neurodiversity and mental health and how it plugs into the LGBT plus community. Here we had Jorik Moll, who's a queer autism activist, and Tenji Moyana, who is a management consultant, but has been working on mental health, particularly from a gender perspective, and burnout in the corporate space. Great event, well attended, many conversations which we've never ever had at the school, I don't think. And I think starting those conversations was really, really cool. I don't know if you have anything to add, Lorena, Daiki.
I'm good. It's just like we've had so many events that making me emotional.
Yeah, I can say that all the events of Taking Up Space were really great, and I think it was great because it included the whole cohort, and starting those conversations from the LGBTQ group was important, but making it a wider thing, it was really, really good, and I hope this is something that it can continue next year because they're very important conversations. So yeah.
Great. Next slide, please. And then the third element, I think, was the professional development and networking, which we wanted for ourselves, given that we need to come out of the MBA as well prepared as possible, and with the best opportunities, and LGBTQ plus communities in society and in the corporate world can be helpful. For this, very early in the year, we attended the Euro Out conference, which is hosted by LBS, where we were able to, I think, firstly get to know each other, but secondly, start to think about what careers we want to go into. It's well attended by a number of different companies and a number of different schools. We've also hosted a networking event with alumni from who are part of the LGBT plus community, who gave us some insights into how we should go about recruiting and what's happening in their respective sectors. We've also had networking with some of the incoming cohort and have formed some cool relationships already, I think, which I think have been symbiotic. We're learning more about them, they're learning about us, and we just believe that everything that we've done this year can be carried forward with them, and we can learn from them. And then, the more recent event was we started a networking series with the other pan-European MBA schools, which was well attended. It was more social than anything, but everyone that attended enjoyed, and we're planning a second one for next week. And then in the pipeline, we are looking at a short virtual multi-career track, which is being spearheaded by James, who is on the call, and his picture is here. He's really been helpful in starting to help us think about, these professional development opportunities and connecting us with affinity groups in other corporates. I think that's about it. Thank you so much, Lorena and Daiki. I don't know if you wanted to add anything about this. And sorry for the lack of pictures. I'm very, very bad at taking pictures. I'm always just so involved in the event itself.
Yeah, I would like to add something. I think when I came into the MBA, I personally didn't have a clear expectation about what LGBTQ was going to be during the year. And I think a lot of progress has been made. I think one issue that we discussed at one point, and will be interesting to be discussed either this year or next year, is what is the role of allies? Because we do have a big group in Telegram, a lot of people there, and allies are super important, but what is an ally, especially in this situation, and how that also relates to other types of allyship in Black Lives Matter or gender equality, etc. So I think that will be a potential next topic of conversation.
For me, I would say this Year Out event was I highly recommend it, because it happens in November. So, by attending it, I guess you get a sense of what career, what sort of things you want to do post MBA, and also you get to connect with other LGBTQ alumni or, business school graduates. So I highly recommend this event. I think it happens right before the exam, so it might be a little tough, but it's a great event, so I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to all three of you for going through that. And as mentioned, please do keep your questions coming in via the Q&A box. We do have some prepared questions for our students and for our alum today. So I'd like to go into that section of the webinar next. And I hope this will provide you with some more insights into the community at the school and the wider university, and also maybe answer some of the questions you might have in mind already. So I'd like to kick off by asking Kaya. So as co-chair of the Pride SBS community, what has been your LGBTQ interaction and experience over the course of the year?
Mm-hmm. So I think I briefly touched on a few elements with regards to this question. So I think the first was sort of determining what LGBTQ plus would be. I think in previous years, there wasn't a big, and David can correct me on this, there wasn't a big, vision for, what the LGBTQ plus community could do from a recruitment perspective, getting more people in the door, to a community perspective, to a thought leadership perspective. Everything that we've been able to do, I think, was quite important for me to start by leading with that. The second is I feel like I've had quite a number of touch points, not only from an SBS perspective, but also from a college perspective, which is something very unique about Oxford, as well as from a general affinity groups perspective within the broader Oxford ecosystem, such as, there's 3 main ones, but there's a number of offshoots that sort of zero in to the category which people sort of fit in their intersectionalities. So yeah, it's been a very positive, I think, leadership experience to sort of get it off the ground and create a space for people to feel safe and in their likeness and in the community, but to also think about what the legacy will be of what will come next.
Thank you for that. So Lorena, what has been your favorite part of the year?
Well, to pick one thing is gonna be hard, so I'm gonna just mention 2. First, in a more general sense about the Oxford University and the degree, for me has been definitely what we call the Oxford experience. So this is something that it doesn't really hit you until you're here, but it's very unique to be studying an MBA, and then you have a matriculation ceremony, then you have formal dinners where you have to dress very nicely and someone speaks in Latin. Then you have the balls, the Oxford Union. I did some rowing with my college, which was amazing. So all of these little things really add up to the experience, and I think that was definitely a highlight. And then when it comes more to the MBA itself of the degree, my favorite part of it was participating in case competitions. There are a lot of them throughout the year, and I find that it's one of the best learning experiences because you apply everything you know and what you don't know in a very short period of time to solve a problem. You are challenged in many ways, and you are able to bond with the people on your team, and whether that's from the MBA or outside. And then just one final note, my favorite LGBT event that we had, I think it was the one night we all went to Plush after the Tuesday drinks. We finally coordinated our busy schedules and we made it all together there.
That's great. Lots of great reasons there, Lorena. Thank you. And Daiki, what is the LGBTQ plus community like within the business school, but then within the wider Oxford environment also?
I think the LGBTQ community that we have is just, as you can tell, like really like welcoming. We host a lot of events and we hang out, and we go to all the we're actually going to go to Spain together, which didn't happen due to COVID-19. But so it's a very welcoming and open environment. At the same time, and outside of our LGBT community as well at the business school, it almost feels like there doesn't need to be an LGBTQ community, because at Oxford, we represent 64 different countries. Everybody's a minority. So I've never felt like special or different just because I'm gay. And I quite like that. So it's very, welcoming. That's what I would say.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. David, it'd be great to hear from you now. So what would you say were the key highlights of your time at Oxford and within this community?
Yeah, I think I'd echo what Lorena was saying in terms of the overall Oxford experience. It really is an incredible thing to participate in. There literally is so much happening. It is physically impossible to do everything you want to. So it actually forces you to deal with FOMO on day one. But I think for me, one of the things that was really amazing was our connections and interactions with other schools and other programs. So during my year, we participated in Year Out in a big way, but we also did exchanges with the LGBT groups at Cambridge and LBS. It was really good to get that exchange going. They came to Oxford, we went to London or to Cambridge, did an overnight stay, had drinks, participated in some fun activities there. But but really it was helpful in understanding our shared experience, because there is, it's easy to get caught into a bubble of thinking that things that are happening to you at Oxford are unique to you, when in reality, sometimes it's an overall problem, especially when it comes to pain points. So that was really helpful because it helped foster that. Because everything else that I was going to say has already been taken by everyone else, so I'll stick there. It's incredible.
Thank you, David. So Kaya, back to you. Have you done any LGBTQ networking with other cohorts, alumni, other MBA schools or corporations? I know this has been touched upon a little bit, but if you can provide some more information around this wider community, that would be great.
Yes, so we've run a networking event, as I think I've mentioned previously, with alumni, with incoming students, and other schools, where I think there is opportunity still is to do more with corporations. As I've highlighted, we're planning a virtual, we're thinking about a virtual trek together with James, but also starting to do more networking with some of the faculty, LGBT faculty and staff, as well as the other programs within the broader SBS community. So the SBS community also hosts the executive MBAs and the people who are doing masters in law and finance. And I think there's a big opportunity to sort of start to coordinate efforts there. So yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. Lorena, over to you. Why do you believe recruiting events like this, what we're doing today, are important?
So while I was hearing what Kaya was saying, it got me back a year ago, or like more like 2 years ago, when I was looking at MBA programs and thinking, I wish I had known this, you know, like I think back then there wasn't that much to be offered from the business school in terms of what they're doing in LGBTQ. And I think for me, it's an important part, and I think for a lot of people, it's an important part to know that, first of all, you can be yourself, but not only be yourself, but also be celebrated for it. So hearing what the school is doing, I am very glad for us and for the upcoming cohorts that there are events, there are career opportunities that are going to be available, even a scholarship, and that the school is doing what they can to enhance this community. And the final point is about knowing that there are people that are going to be in your cohort in this next stage of your life, which in itself, it's very scary, a lot of changes going on, but knowing that you're going to be with people who in some way can understand you, and you can talk to them, and you can be yourself in any way you want to show your gender identity, of your sexuality, whatever stage you are in your journey. There's someone that is going to understand you, and I think that's those 3 points.
Great, thank you so much. Daiki, I think we've spoken to this question a little bit already, but has the school been supportive of the LGBTQ plus community, and in what ways?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, just like events like this, like school is very supportive of hosting events like this with us, and you know, they're open to doing a lot of LGBTQ related events with us. So it's been the school has been very supportive and all that. And also, as you walk through the school building, you find rainbow flags everywhere. In the offices and in a library, and also like I actually belong to a college called Green Templeton, and a name tag has like these rainbow thing as well. So everywhere, like I think the school is very supportive. And in fact, in my interview with Oxford, it was about like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. But almost all the conversation that I had with the interviewer was about LGBTQ rights at the school. And I remember I was being happy about being able to talk about stuff like that openly, especially, for someone coming from Asia. So yeah, the school is very supportive and open.
Thank you for sharing that. David, were there any Oxford debates that you got involved in that highlighted this community during your time in Oxford?
Yep. So I think one thing that is key within the Oxford SBS experience is, and I believe it's still the case, Corinne, keep me honest, But as being a part of the MBA community, you are automatically granted membership into the Oxford Union, which is the debating center that does parliamentary style debates on topics every single Thursday. And my year, they had a debate on marriage, as if that could still be debated in the UK today. But it was something that for me was really incredible. So there was a formal dinner reception beforehand for LGBT students, where I got to meet with some of the debaters and actually get a little bit of how they were thinking before the debate. And then I was invited to give a 2-minute floor speech on my experiences about fighting for marriage equality in the US. So that was really incredible. It was something that those topics are generally provocative every week. They have a lot that they put out into the space because it is meant to be a vigorous debate. But that was an experience that I would not have had at any other program that to me was truly special. I didn't touch on it before because I knew this question was coming up.
Thank you for sharing that, David. That's great. So Kaya, what are the opportunities for upcoming cohorts to improve on this year's legacy, if that is possible?
I think there's a few things, and I'm speaking just in light of the current climate and conversations which what we are actively having. The first is from a curricular perspective. I don't personally remember in any of my classes learning about any queer-owned companies or any queer ideas. And I think from a representation perspective, that would be quite, I think, special. The second I sort of have touched on already is just the interaction between faculty, staff, and the students. I think we live in silos and we don't necessarily, speak to each other. And again, the third would be from a careers perspective. I think one thing I wish I had done earlier was to incorporate more corporates into LGBTQ plus specific career networking. As much as it's something that's in the pipeline, it does feel a little bit late given that we have to make a few decisions in the next month or two. So yeah, those three things: curriculum, interaction between faculty and students, and more corporates involved.
Great, thank you for those points, Kaya. So Lorena, how has the COVID pandemic affected your activities this year?
I definitely think this is the hardest question to answer.
It is. It is.
I mean, I'm not gonna state the obvious, which I'm sure we all around the world know and have struggled with certain things. The one thing that I would just mention is that the one event that got canceled and we were actually planning on going to Madrid was to go to Pride Madrid. And I did have a few conversations with some friends from the MBA asking me if an online Pride would be the same, and it made me reflect on why this exists. So I did take the chance to reflect on why we have Pride and why it's important to have that chance for every person of the community to be themselves without being judged and taking pride on what otherwise would have been an aggression. So that was interesting, but let's take aside everything that got canceled, postponed, and classes online. What I would say is that yes, the MBA experience was cut off, and it was hard, to be honest. But I think that as a result, I feel like as a cohort and as the groups that you have in the MBA, we found creative ways to hang out, to talk, to interact. I think that Kaya did a very good sessions on networking with alumni working in tech. So all of this I felt like has made us be creative and actually support each other more and be closer after all of this happened.
Thank you for sharing those, and it's great to hear of some of the things that you've been doing in a more creative way in rising to the pandemic. So thank you for sharing that, Lorena. And so Daiki, do you have any advice for future MBAs that are searching for their ideal institution?
I would say, I mean, this is going to sound really cliche, and I hate to do that, but really don't let your sexuality get in the way of doing things that you want to do. I remember coming to Oxford a year ago. I had a bit of reservations about how open I want to be about my sexuality, and as Kaya said, we're at first trying to figure out like who's in the community, who's not in the community, and all that, but I was really surprised in a good way, like very much surprised at like how open and accepting people are, which is the reason why I love Oxford. So, go talk to the people that you want to talk to, participate as many events as possible. Just don't let anything get in the way of what you want to do, because no one really cares. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much. So David, what would be your advice for being out in recruitment for roles, and how to leverage LGBTQ as a superpower post your MBA experience?
Yeah, happy to talk to that. And I build off of what Daiki was saying. Can you hear me? Sorry. Yep, okay. Yes. Building off of what Daiki was saying in terms of being out at SPS, I think that this question always comes up. And Jordan, you might be able to provide additional insights on if this is still a common Ramba question, because I know it was when I was at Ramba in 2015. But it's sort of a constant question of, do I be out in recruitment or not? Is that something that's okay? Is it something that's helpful? Is it going to hurt my application? I think first think about the geography that you're applying to, and their local laws and comfortability. Because in some cases that is a reality. I think for any company that's on campus recruiting, that is far less of a concern, especially anywhere in North America or Europe. But it is something that, the way I look at it, it's a superpower. It's a way to open up the door a little bit more with these firms and with these companies. Because when you think about recruitment, on-campus recruiting, you have 2 or 3 people from the company and 80 students who want to get a job there. And so your time is short and limited. Being able to have someone else at the company that you can talk to understand, is this the right fit for me, as well as someone you can talk to say, hey, can you get my resume to the top of the pile, are both sort of what I call our superpowers, being out and MBA students. So I highly encourage being out in your application, both to the program and to employers, but totally understand that geography might impact this significantly.
Great advice there, David. Thank you so much. So that's the end of our prepared questions that we have for our students and alumnus today. Do keep your questions coming in as we continue through the webinar, but we're very excited to have Jordan from Reaching Out MBA join us today, and we're excited to announce our partnership with them, which helps to strengthen our position as one of the world's most inclusive and diverse business schools. So Jordan, I know you've prepared some slides for us today, so over to you, and thank you so much for being here.
Sure, thank you for having me. So you can go to the next slide. This is a picture of our 2019 cohort outside of the LGBT Center in New York City. So I'll talk more about this in depth, but each year our cohort of fellows who are chosen as fellowship recipients are invited to an all expenses paid retreat in New York City for a weekend of learning and fun. So this is just a representation of part of the group. We had over 70 students in the 2019 cohort. We had about 50 of them come to join us in New York City. So we took this picture right before we did a tour of the Lower East Village, which is known as sort of the gay district in New York City, with some tourism drag queens, which was a really great event. I can go to the next slide. So this is part of the welcome letter that incoming fellows receive each year, introducing them to the fellowship. A similar letter will go out to the class of 2023 in the spring of next year. And this basically tells them what the fellowship is about. And for your information, the fellowship is a partnership between top MBA programs and Reaching Out MBA to bring qualified LGBT plus students into business school. And so the fellowship consists of two parts. There is a monetary scholarship, which amounts to a minimum of $20,000 US dollars. And then a professional development, which is handled by Reaching Out MBA. And our intent with the program is to identify qualified LGBT candidates who are looking to really become leaders in their school and in their organizations beyond graduation. Next slide, please. So a bit about the fellowship. We started in 2015. The first cohort had 25 students from 18 schools based in the US. And now we've grown to have 70 plus students in each cohort and 60 member schools, now including schools in Canada, in Europe, and one in Australia. We're very excited to have Oxford Saïd join us for this year. For the 2022 cohort, which is starting this fall, we have 75 students, and each are receiving a minimum of $20,000 for their program. And over the past 5 years, we've been able to award over $11 million to 266 LGBT plus students. And we're just really excited about seeing that growth. It shows that there is a need for the scholarship and that there are more LGBT folks coming into business school. And we seek to provide them with some tools to leverage their LGBT identity, as David said, as a superpower rather than, you know, a point of shame or embarrassment. And in the past few years, we've really grown the program to see a diverse range of ages, ethnicities, and gender and sexual identities. Go to the next slide. So some of the benefits that come with the fellowship are listed here. We have the fellowship retreat, which takes place during the summer before business school. And it has been reported as the favorite event of the fellows because it allows them to get to know each other in a cohort, understand a bit more about reaching out, and receive some professional development around how to prepare for business school as a member of the LGBT community. They also receive complimentary registration for all Reaching Out events during their fellowship. And typically at the Ramba conference, which I'll explain more about in a little bit, we have a meet and greet with a celebrity keynote. Last year, the students met Lena Waithe, who is a well-known producer and actor. Previous years, we've had meet and greets with Anderson Cooper and George Takei and Laverne Cox. So that's one of the nice benefits. And then students also receive priority consideration for participation in our summer treks. And these treks allow students to visit headquarters cities and speak with company representatives to talk about what it's like to be LGBT in business industries, in certain corporations, and just the opportunities that they'll be afforded as MBAs. They also receive lifetime access to job boards and alumni events through Reaching Out Connect, which is our online community platform. Next slide. What we're most widely known for is the Ramba Conference. It stands for Reaching Out MBA Conference. The 23rd conference will take place this year virtually on October 2nd through 3rd and 8th through 10th. So we invite all of you to come and attend, whether you are a current student, a pre-MBA, or an alum. All are welcome. In the past year, we had 18 attendees who all identified as LGBT. half of them identified as current MBAs, and about half identified as alumni, professionals, or corporate partners. Speaking of corporate partners, we have over 95 companies that come to the conference to recruit specifically LGBT talent, since this is one area that you can't always easily identify. And we have some highlights here of the conference. We have an Out Women at Ramba block and reception that talks about women's issues and what it's like to be female in a male-dominated industry and business sectors. We have a 2-day career expo where all of our 95 plus corporate partners will be demoing either new products or opportunities for employment. We have a number of competitions. We have a consulting case competition, a mergers and acquisitions competition, and a startup pitch competition where you can win some prize money. I think the prizes are up to $5,000 US. We also have some plenaries with C-suite executives where they talk about how they have risen to the top of their company and how their LGBT identity has been a part of that. We also have a celebrity keynote address, as I talked about earlier. And then we have this year around 30 industry-specific content sessions that talk about different developments within industries, ways that we can solve for issues within those industries, and how being LGBT kind of affects your role within those industries. If you can go to the next slide. So we're planning to open registration within the next few weeks. So just keep checking back on our website. I forgot to add an email address for any questions that you may have, but I'll put that into the chat. But it's info@reachingoutmba.org. And if you have any questions about how to register or what the Ramba conference is like, I'm happy to answer those questions. So once you're registered for the conference, we have a separate platform where you can upload your CV and apply to jobs. And then you'll also want to review the schedule and competition guidelines if you're interested in participating in those. And then we also advise you to just research the industries, companies, and roles that you're interested in, so that when you go into the conference, you have some talking points to start off with as you speak with different corporate partners and do some networking. And then lastly, you may want to work on this with your classmates, is get your interview and elevator pitch prep ready with your club. So there'll be a lot of networking events, even though we are virtual this year, where you can meet with other students from different schools and corporate partners and C-suite executives. And so you'll want to have sort of your elevator pitch about what you're interested in, what you're looking to go into, ready for that. Next slide, please. So reaching out is also more than just our Ramba conference. We have an Out Women in Business conference that takes place in March in New York City. We have a student leadership summit for our club leaders that takes place in April in Chicago. We have summer and Ramba treks that take place in various cities around the US. And then we also have pre-MBA summit and professional content at Ramba for those who are considering business school but have not yet applied. And then of course we have our MBA fellowship. So there's a lot to the organization. We're mainly an events-based organization, and there's a lot of great resources for the LGBT MBA community. Our goal is to connect, inspire, and educate the LGBT MBA community. And hopefully, if you go to the next slide, you may see yourself up on the screen as a future leader, working to help progress LGBT rights and equality, whether that be in technology like Tim Cook, media and entertainment like the Fab Five or Lena Waithe, who was our keynote speaker in 2019, or in government like Lori Lightfoot. We really just hope that you feel empowered to use your LGBT identity to solve for issues within the business world and the greater community. And so that concludes my presentation about Reaching Out MBA. I'm happy to take any questions, or if you think of anything later on, you can always email me.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jordan. That was a really insightful presentation. So thank you so much. And as I said before, we're very excited to be joining partnership with ROMBA this year and also announcing our scholarship. So we're looking forward to working with you more closely over the years ahead. And if you do have questions for Jordan, then please do pop them in the Q&A. We do have a few minutes left for some questions. So Francisca, what have we got that's come in so far?
We've had a few great questions come in. I think some people can already see that some answers have also been typed already. So thank you very much to the panel for helping with those. Just to highlight a few of those questions, maybe for those people that will listen to the recording. There was a question from an incoming cohort, how the new cohorts for maybe the next year or this September, is there any way they can get involved in the community now?
So the current incoming cohort already has a Telegram group. So if you have that application, I would strongly advise you to find it. I'm not quite sure where the link is, but there's a few people who I know are on this call that might be able to help with that. So just shoot me a mail and I'll connect you. Yeah, if people have offers, even if it's for 2021, I know quite a few people have deferred, happy to involve you in the current events, which we currently have planned for the next couple of weeks.
Thank you so much for that. I have another question, which is, I guess, a little bit more for everyone, and it is whether the school support towards the LGBTQIA+ community, whether that was a factor for you to choose your business school.
I can go first. So for me, I definitely did look for LGBTQ+ representation on the pages, and during my time, I couldn't find anything because nothing existed. But I'm happy to announce that now there is. But no, the short answer is it's something I looked for, but it wasn't a big decision maker. I think for me, the bigger decision maker was the overall social impact orientation of the University of Oxford Saïd Business School program, as well as obviously I think there's a few factors which I chose, which determined why I chose Oxford. But yeah, short answer is it was something I looked for, but not a decision-making factor.
Thank you.
I can chime in from a historical perspective as well. When I was applying, there actually was some content on the site, but it was outdated and a little bit problematic. And it was actually something I brought up in my interview as a reason why I might not join the program. And what I was really encouraged by was during that interview, the head of admissions was very keen and very focused on how do we change that? How do we make that better? How do we address that? And like many problems at a business school or in business, if you call out, hey, there's an issue here, they're going to say, great, awesome, fix it, please help. And so really got involved in that process of trying to change that and make that better for incoming students. And our partnership with ROMBA actually started out of that conversations. We started those initial exploratory conversations back then.
Thank you, David. I have a question for you here, and which is, how did you stay connected with Oxford and the community since you finished your MBA?
Yeah, I think one of the really interesting things that I wasn't necessarily expecting was how closely I would stay in touch with my non-LGBT cohort. There's a ton of them who I stay in contact actually more often than my LGBT cohort. But it really just comes down to natural affinities, and also geography is a major factor. No one from the LGBT cohort ended up here on the East Coast of the US. But I think it's something where I've stayed involved not only with my cohort, but also tried to work with students down the line who are coming into the program. For the next probably 2 or 3 years after I graduated, I was involved with trying to help with some transitions or knowledge exchange and information transfer, and encourage them to do the same on the way down. Seems like there's a little bit of a gap in that transitioning, but I think it's something that for me had to stay actively involved with.
Thank you. I can't see many more questions that haven't been answered yet at the moment. Corinne, do you have another one, or do you want to tie it up, considering that we're now bang on time at 3 o'clock?
Yes, good point. So I think we are coming to the end of our session today. So I think if you do have any other questions, then please do send them through to us. We'll share some email addresses shortly. But to close this session today, I just wanted to show on the next slide some of the details of next steps that are available to you. Here we go. So this is for those of you that are joining us that are looking at business schools to attend and starting that MBA journey. So there are a number of different steps here which you can take, and as I said, we will share some email addresses with you shortly on the next screen. If you do wish to connect with our alum David today or our students, and please do reach out to us and we can get permission to share their details with you. Or please do find them on LinkedIn. I'm sure they'll be happy to have a further conversation with you following today's webinar. But here are 3 key email addresses. So please do reach out to either the Pride SBS group, which the recruitment team and also the students will have access to. The middle one there, the Oxford MBA @ is for the main recruitment team. So any admissions related questions, please do come through to us. And as Jordan's also highlighted in the chat there, any questions for Romba and reaching out MBA specifically, please do reach out to them and Jordan at the email address listed here. But as we do close today, it's a shame we don't have more time. The hour's gone very quick, but thank you so much to all of our panelists, especially Kaya, who's really helped drive this and make this possible with us today. And to David and Jordan, who are joining us from America. So thank you for joining us in your early hours. And to Francisca as well, who's very much helped manage this today and put this together. So it's been a pleasure to work with you all. It's been very much a team effort. And thank you to the engaged audience as well. Some great questions coming through, and please do continue your conversations with us and reach out to us. Great, thank you everyone, and stay well.